everybody. Just give everybody a minute or so to get on here, and then we'll recap what all happened yesterday in the Pac12 through the SEC, and all the other three conferences as well, and the championship games, and how everything checked out. So, just like I said, I'll give everybody about another half minute or so they can get on. But while we're waiting, just hope everybody had a good championship Saturday, and hopefully your team won, or if they played, or whatnot. And it was a great day yesterday, Mr. Ellis. It was pretty awesome to watch. And I'll throw this out there while we're waiting. The unders went 4-1 yesterday, with the only over coming by half a point. Obviously, lines changed during the week and everything, so that matters where you got in on it. But the four unders were pretty. You would have hit under no matter what point range you had, I believe. The one over, you had a chance to actually. You could have went 5-0 if you took every under. So pretty neat there. Shows defense really does matter late in the year, and with these better teams, and they proved that yesterday. So, with that said, we'll jump right in. The Pac-12 was Friday night. USC and Stanford. This game, I had predicted at 33-27, so I was a little off there. They did finish up 31-28. Pretty happy with that, because I actually had went in, and when I projected all these games, I actually took the score that I came up with on all 5 of these games and actually multiplied them times 0.9, because I felt like defense was going to come out a little stronger. Maybe both teams would fill each other out kind of in the first half. And every player is going to play a little bit tense. They know what's on the line, that kind of thing. So I knew that it would take a little bit to get warmed up, even if it was going to be a high-scoring game. So that's why I did that. And they did go a lot higher on their stats than I thought. USC finished with 176 yards rushing to 325 yards passing. Sam had a really good night to finish out his what I think will probably be his career. He does have a chance to come back next year, but I think that he's probably finished up. And Stanford finished with 151 yards rushing to 192 yards passing. So if you watched any of that game, you noticed that Bryce Love, he played everything he had. A guy come out there with a high ankle sprain, which usually takes people, players out of a game or out of a year a lot of times. I mean, that is a very painful and always reoccurring injury for the short term, and it takes some time to get over and get back healthy. He came out, run the ball like crazy, missed one game against Oregon State earlier in the year, and I mean, that's just a beast right there. That guy has it all around, and it's really a shame, in my opinion, that a lot more people didn't get to watch him play, because even though they come up a little short this Friday night, he put up some monster numbers this year and really carried that team. And it's just, it's that West Coast thing where a lot of people don't get to watch it. So may have hurt him a little bit in the Heisman. We'll never know. But anyway, the over-under in this game was 58.5 when I had it, and that was earlier in the week, of course. But the game did go to 59, which is the one game that went over by half a point. So as far as playoff ramifications, that kind of thing, I really don't think the USC is going to be able to get in. They were just too far back. They were 10th going into the week, and that's just a huge jump. And the team that they beat, they did not, was not in the top 10 or something like that. And also, they didn't beat them by 40. They beat them by 3. So I do think that goes into play. And people used to say that in football, it didn't matter if you won by a point or won by 100. Well, that's not true anymore, I don't think. One, because of people like us that like to wager on things, it does matter how much you win by. And also, for the team with the playoff committee and how that goes into effect, and really when we had the BCS, it matters about that style. It matters how good you show up on the field and play. So, in my opinion, it does matter how bad you win or how big you win. So, with that said, we'll move right on. The second game we want to talk about is the SEC. So, obviously, I live in the Southeast and went to school in the Southeast, at an SEC school and everything. So this is my kind of, I guess you can say I'm kind of a homer, obviously, just by default. But yesterday was a good game as far as the first half went, and really late into the third quarter. And Georgia just kind of warmed down, scored, a couple scores late there. One long run with Swift. And I want to speak about that real quick too. Going into next year, that kid is going to be great. Number 7, he was a freshman, third-string running back for Georgia this year. His two guys ahead of him are seniors, Chubb and Michelle. And both of those guys are really good. But Swift came in as a freshman and, had some very good games, including yesterday where he led in rushing for the team and all. And he's going to be very good. And then you got Evander Holyfield's son is the next guy in line after him. So that's going to be a good 1-2 punch, no pun intended, for Georgia next year. So they got a lot coming back. Should be a good team again next year, no matter what happens to them the rest of the year this year. As far as Auburn, they couldn't get anything going on the run. With Carry-On being down, it really hurt them guys. And you could tell, and really all their running backs. You had Petway was out without question. He wasn't going to play. Carry-On got weak shoulders is what I understand. And maybe due to the way he wears his shoulder pads. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. You wear your shoulder pads high and up on the shoulder, you're going to get hit on the shoulder. He's hurt both of them this year. And also, Cam Martin was their third-string running back, which is a good running back. He's young, but he's not just overly great. But he had an ankle sprain from last week on his very first carry. So we'll see how that turns out and how that goes. As far as the rest of the team, it looked like Stidham was very good. He was on. He didn't let the big game get to him, especially in the first half. And then he took a hit late in the I believe it was in the third quarter, right before they kicked a field goal. And hey, what's up, Sports Fury? Good to have you on, man. Kicked the field goal, got it blocked, and after that, he just never was the same. I think he went 1 of 9 passes after that. Really hurt him on the rest of hurt the team, and ultimately Georgia got to the 28-1 or 28-7 victory. And Georgia just, I gave them 4 points when I was handicapping them simply for revenge. I actually did the same thing for TCU. I'll say that too. Those two teams, Stanford played USC so early in the year that I really didn't give them anything for revenge just because it was like the second or third game. But the other two, TCU and Oklahoma, played back in November. So did Auburn and Georgia. So I felt like, that short-term memory in some of these guys is very strong, and it proved big time yesterday for Georgia, not so much for TCU. But I'll make notes and adjust that, for future reference and see if that helps us out. It definitely made it look, legit for yesterday's SEC game. But yesterday, UGA finished up with 238 yards rushing, 183 yards passing, 114 yards rushing for Auburn, and 145 yards passing. So you can kind of see exactly what I was talking about with Auburn's running backs being out. Just really messed up their offense. As far as Georgia's quarterback, he had a very good day. I thought that he was on from the start. Going in as a freshman, that's a big deal. I know he started all year just about, starting with game 2, or he actually came in game 1 and played a lot. But even though he has played a lot of games, this was the SEC, the conference championship. He come out there ready to go, like he was very focused, calm, collected, did his thing in front of his home crowd, being in Atlanta. It's not too far from Athens. The state of Georgia's covered up with them. So, big day for him. And it looks like to me that's probably going to put Georgia in the playoffs. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to put them in the playoffs. And deservedly so. They, had the one loss. It was on the road. Yes, it was a bad loss as far as score. But it was to the same team that they beat for the conference championship. It wasn't like they, went on the road and lost to Vanderbilt or somebody like that who didn't do anything the rest of the year. They did. Their one loss was on the road at Jordan-Hare in a very underrated stadium. And if you haven't ever been to Auburn to watch a football game, they get very loud. It's a very good stadium. and I would recommend doing so. It's an experience. So moving on, that takes care of the SEC and the Pac-12. Next up, I'm going to talk about the ACC, which was last night. There's not a lot to talk about here. Miami just seemed not to come ready to play, or for whatever reason, just got down and out the first couple drives. Before you knew it, was 21-0. Clemson was rolling. Clemson proved yesterday that they are the #1 team in the country, in my opinion. Oklahoma had a very good second half, but Clemson had a very good game. They come out, played from start to finish, never let up. Ultimately got the 38-3 victory over Miami, and did it on all sides of the ball. They did it in the special teams, took care of business on defense, stopping Miami, getting turnovers, took care of the ball on offense, did everything you need to do to show that you're the #1 team in the country. So, in my opinion, Clemson will be #1 when that comes out today. And it looks like Clemson finished up with 77 yards rushing, which was a little low, but 254 yards passing. They held Miami to 104 yards rushing and 110 yards passing. So obviously they held Miami down, just like Pittsburgh did. I think they watched, seeing what Pittsburgh did to them last week, loaded the box, put somebody in Rozier's face, and when you do that, you're going to disturb the offense, and that's exactly what happened. Clemson come out, took care of business, covered the big spread, the 9.5 points, and the game did go under. So that's about all I got to say about ACC. It wasn't near as exciting as I actually thought it was going to be. I thought that Miami would have something for them. I thought that they would come back, bounce back from last week, and kind of get back focused. Your team sometimes it kind of gets, just kind of not really playing at its best, and end up with that one loss. And sometimes you got teams that come out the next week and absolutely play, like gangbusters and just taking care of business. And then other times you have what Miami did and come out and just kind of lay on the season and didn't really do much there. So moving on to the Big 12, where Oklahoma got a big victory yesterday. If you watched any of that game, you know that the first half was a lot better than the second half. Oklahoma jumped out to a quick 17-0 lead in the first quarter. By the end of the first quarter, TCU had come back and scored a touchdown, really started to get some momentum going. Second quarter, they started throwing the ball a lot better, running a lot better, just making great plays. Didn't make stupid mistakes, except for one play where Kenny Hill actually come around the end and fumbled the ball, went about 3 yards in the air, and somehow he come up with it again. I don't know how he did it, but he did. But after that, going into halftime, it was 24-17 Oklahoma, and just after that, it was all Oklahoma. They didn't let TCU score another point in the game. Oklahoma come out and showed that they had the better talent and the better game plan. As far as this is another game that kind of like Miami, I thought TCU would come out with the revenge factor on them as far as the way they lost to Oklahoma the first time this year. I really felt like Gary Patterson would have that team, up playing above their level, just because that guy's a really emotional coach, and he'd have that team pissed off and ready to go. And he did for some part, but whatever happened, I don't know if it was Oklahoma making adjustments. I don't know if it was just TCU didn't make enough adjustments, but for whatever reason, Oklahoma came out in the second half and just took care of business. Oklahoma finished up with 218 yards rushing, 243 yards passing, so obviously had a very balanced day. That's taking care of business. That's every quarter doing your thing. TCU was held to 83 yards rushing and 234 yards passing. So a good day for Kenny Hill overall, but the rest of the team just wasn't there. They couldn't run the ball. And if you watch a lot of TCU football in the past, not necessarily this year, but other years in the past, they're very good on defense. They take care of the ball, rush the ball hard, and that's how they win football games. They hadn't necessarily had that at some times this year. They took care of business against teams like Oklahoma State back early in the year, but then would falter to other teams that they shouldn't have. So things like losing to Iowa State, who was a good team, but they shouldn't have lost to Iowa State, things like that. So Oklahoma gets a big win there and moves on to what I think will keep them a spot in the playoffs. They were obviously in the top 4 last week. I had them at number 2 last week. I think they actually come in off the committee's number 3. And this week, I think they bump up to 2. And then finally, we've got probably the most controversial as far as what happens with the committee, and it's the Big Ten. Ohio State and Wisconsin last night. It was a good game. Ohio State had several opportunities to take off and kind of stretch that lead and just never could do it. They jumped out to a 7-point lead, let Wisconsin come back. Ended up taking very quickly, jumped up to 14-7. And I'll give credit to Wisconsin. They never gave up in that football game. And at the end, it finished call on the while I was live streaming, so I don't know what happened there. But anyways, Ohio State took care of business the rest of the time and actually stretched it out, got a few field goals late, put it 27. And then Wisconsin had a chance at the end of the game. They started driving the ball with about 2 minutes left and got down to about the 40-yard line or so of Ohio State and just kind of fizzled out. They turned the ball over there, and ultimately Ohio State gets the win. Ohio State was ranked, I believe, 8th going in that game, and that's where the controversy really comes in for me. Alabama ranked 5th. Ohio State ranked 8th. If you look at the regular season and what happened last year with the regular season, where Ohio State went to the playoffs without going to the conference championship game over Penn State, who was in their same conference, who had the, could have won the playoffs, won their Big Ten championship, but ultimately had 2 losses versus Ohio State only having the 1. It's going to be interesting today. I know we've got some new faces on the committee. I know that there's a few. It's very interesting. I heard at one point there was an opportunity that out of the 13 committee members, there's a chance that 3 of them have ties to these teams and actually cannot vote. So that leaves us, if that happens, I have not read any articles this morning, but if that happens, that leaves us with 10 committee members. And as you know, obviously with 10, you've got an even split. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they come up with this morning. I know they've been working on it since, I want to say they all went in the office at like 2 a.m. this morning. And the rankings actually come out at 12 at noon Eastern time, 11 a.m. Central. So it's not like they had a lot of time. They didn't have all day to get ready for it. I think they were all together yesterday watching the games. So I'm sure a lot of discussion happened yesterday. But as far as getting these final rankings of the top 4, who's going, I don't know what they're going to do. I know what I've got, and I'm about to go over it. But I don't know what they're going to do, actually. I don't know if they're going to keep that standard of what they did last year, where the regular season matters just as much as a conference championship, and ultimately looking at what teams have done. But if so, in my opinion, you're going to put Alabama in. If that's the case, I told somebody yesterday, they were asking me what I thought as far as a Big Ten championship and what had to happen. I said, for one, Ohio State's got to win the game, but they don't need to win it by 50. They need to win it for Alabama to get in. Excuse me. They asked me what needs to happen for Alabama to get in at that point, and that had been TCU losing, that had been Georgia winning, and we hadn't seen what was going to happen out of Clemson, Miami, and Ohio State, Wisconsin at that time. And I said, as Alabama needs is for Ohio State to win the game, but to only win between, say, 3 to 17 points, not to win by 50, because we don't need them to look better than Alabama. They just need to take care of business and take Wisconsin out of the top 4 for that to happen. And that's exactly what happened. So in my opinion, that set up very well for Alabama and them getting in, because Ohio State didn't get a lot of style points. They showed that they are weak in a few areas, and these guys on this committee, these men and women that do it, they know exactly, the ins and outs. Some of them ex-football coaches, some of them have been ADs, some of them are just very knowledgeable about the game. So they know when they see a weakness, they know what's going to happen there. And ultimately, they've got to make a decision what they're going to do. So my top 4 is Clemson at 1. They dominated yesterday. They've been a very good team all year, besides the one game against Syracuse, and that's thrown out the window. So Clemson, number 1. Oklahoma, number 2. I think Oklahoma is number 2 because they've been very steady. You know, if you don't count or if you don't look necessarily simply at what they did against Iowa State, you take the fact they went on the road to Ohio State, took care of business as an underdog on the road. You take in consideration they did win their conference very handedly. They won several games by, had the third string in late in third quarter. They just look good. They deservedly, in my opinion, are number 2. Number 3 is where I have Georgia. I feel like going from 7 to 3 is understandable. They won the conference. They also took care of business against a team that they lost 40-17 just 3 weeks ago. They also, in my opinion, have been very stout the rest of the year. They've got a very good team. They seem to be hitting a very good stride right here at the end. That bodes well for them. So I've got Georgia at number 3. And number 4, I do have Alabama. I think that Alabama deserves as far as the year put together. Not necessarily yesterday, but the year overall. I think that they will have Ohio State at 5. So I think it's going to be very close. There's no doubt. But even though Alabama didn't win their conference championship, I do feel as if their overall year was a little bit better than what Ohio State's is. And you got teams, that's really the 2 that it comes down to. With Miami, who lost at number 7, goes back, and I'm sorry, I had UGA, I said UGA at 7. UGA was 6, Alabama was 5. So I do think that it's just a one-step bump from 5 to 4. There's just too many things, in my opinion, that mean that Alabama's going. And that may be a biased opinion. If you think that, you have a right to say that. I just feel like everything that has happened this year in college football should give us that 4. Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, Alabama. So if you do think opposite, or if you do think something different, please leave it in the comments below. I'd love to chat with you guys. If you want to hit me up on Twitter at TheGoal60. Check out the website, thegoal60.com. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. It is going to be a lot shorter video than usual because we only had the 5 games. So again, here in just a few minutes, at 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern, the playoff committee will announce their top 4. And then after that, we have the bowl selections. So the bowl games start 2 weeks from yesterday. Next week, we have the Heisman Trophy, and we also have the Army-Navy game. Hope you all watch that game just for simple pride in our country. And it should be a very good game this year. Army has got a lot better team than they've had in the past. Navy's always, consistent with what they do. So check that game out next Saturday. And then you got your Heisman Trophy ceremony. And then the week later, we jump into bowl games. Now, a lot of you know that I handicap Power 5 because there's a lot more information readily available. There's easy to get things on that. Makes handicapping a lot easier. Plus, it's 65 teams plus Notre Dame versus 128. So some of those bowl games, or the Power 5 bowl games, will not start till later on in the bowl season. But I will have some videos up and going into that, trying to get ready for bowl season. So please make sure you check those out. Like and subscribe. And thank you and have a great day. Hope you enjoyed Championship Saturday. See you next time.